Over 1,500 years ago, in the Northern Wei dynasty, the devout Buddhist monk Tan Yao directed the craftsmen and artisans who carved the grottos and statuary on Wuzhou Hill near Datong. Their workmanship represents a critical phase in the Sinicization of Buddhist art. The grand project embodied its creator's wishes for the Buddha statues to endure eternally, like the hill in whose embrace they were held. But only time lasts forever. The Yungang Grottoes have experienced the impacts of both human and natural forces from their very beginning. Warfare, theft, and natural erosion have all taken their toll on this cultural gem, eventually abandoned amidst the bleak swirling dust. In the early 20th century, the grottos at Yungang were rediscovered. As China emerged from decades of war and turbulence, Yungang presented a profound question: how to preserve this historical treasure? This is the Yungang Grottoes Museum, a uniquely designed sunken building. Within its 10,000 square meter space, it showcases artifacts from the Yungang Grottoes spanning various periods. Among these, a colored glazed Buddha's eyeball stands out as particularly remarkable.
我们馆收藏的在这儿和琉璃眼球呢，是上个世纪80年代从美国回归来的。在一个上个世纪80年代呢，北京大学考古系教授舒柏先生呢，在美国访问期间呢以后，遇到一个美国的一个考古学家史先生。史先生当时要退休，他在民国年间曾经在云南考察过，当时呢是以1块大洋把这个眼睛告走的，但是在他退休之后，他也不想把这个心愿圆了，愿意把这个眼球回归给中国。
In 452 AD, Tu Baojun ascended to the throne as Emperor Wenchang of the Northern Wei dynasty, established by the Xianbei people. Scholars believe that under his reign, the revered monk Tan Yao initiated the construction of the Yungang Grottoes. Caves 16 to 20, the earliest in the complex, are considered masterpieces of Gandharan-style art and a testament to Tan Yao's contribution. During the late Eastern Han dynasty, monks from ancient India brought Buddhism to China via the Silk Road. With them came the arts of grotto and statue making, primarily from the Gandhara region, which straddles modern Pakistan and Afghanistan. In the 4th century BC, Alexander the Great had conquered Gandhara, and it became a colony of ancient Greece. Thereafter, the Buddhist art and statues that emerged in this region displayed the influence of ancient Greek sculpture. When the Northern Wei dynasty embraced Buddhism, this cultural integration flourished at Yungang, propelling Gandharan art to its zenith in China. These grottos exhibit notable Greek influences, evident in the ancient Greek facial features of the Buddhist statues and the draping attire reminiscent of Greek robes. Based on this, it is believed that the statues were initially carved without eyeballs in their eyes, which were possibly added later.
和我们看到的希腊雕刻那种石膏像那个学生在那画那个大卫啊什么那个眼睛是一样的，这个眼球是后来明代之后加上去的。
Regardless of how the eyes are depicted, the faces of the Buddhas appear neither happy nor sad. For millennia they have stood at the foot of Wuzhou Hill, witnessing the rise and fall of this Buddhist sanctuary. They have also been witness to repeated plundering of their domain, powerless to intervene. In 1902, the Japanese scholar Ito Shuta rediscovered the Yungang Grottoes during his travels in China. While the discovery brought global attention to this Chinese artistic treasure, it also led to an epidemic of theft and destruction in the grottos. In the 1930s, a scholar named Chang Hui visited Yungang. His research brought to light the alarming loss of Buddha's heads. According to his records, 96 stone Buddha heads were missing. For identification's sake, Chang Hui marked these headless statues with red paint. Even as time has passed, traces of the red paint remain, serving as a poignant reminder of those turbulent times for today's generation. The grottos were built over 1,500 years ago as a royal project to bolster the dynastic regime. Today they welcome countless visitors who come to experience the history and culture they embody. Zhao Kunyu, a research fellow at the Yungang Research Institute, routinely inspects the grottos. Unlike the many who admire their beauty, he focuses on the damage to the statues. For him, the grotto's turbulent history and their enduring hardships are directly connected. While inspecting the auxiliary Cave 1 of Cave 16, Zhao Kunyu noticed 3 holes in the north wall of the cave, indicating the previous presence of statues that have disappeared. Where did these statues go? What did they look like? In 1907, a French archaeologist named Emmanuel Edouard Chavannet visited the Yungang Grottoes and took a series of photos. These are the earliest known image records of the Yungang Grottoes. In 1925, the Swedish art historian Oswald Siren published the book Chinese Sculpture from the 5th to the 14th century, which included a large number of photos of the Yungang Grottoes. These photos played a crucial role in identifying lost artifacts. Using Chavanet's photos, Zhao Kunyu identified the 3 statues on the middle layer of the north wall in Auxiliary Cave 1 of Cave 16. While one statue was damaged, the other 2 were both draped in heavy robes, with one hand on their knee and the other raised. These 2 statues were intact in Oswald Siren's Yungang Grottoes photos, but were later stolen. Oswald Siren's photos also show lions on both sides of this bodhisattva, which the grotto now exhibits no trace of, indicating that all were cut away and stolen. Paris, New York, London and Tokyo are known for being major international cosmopolitan cities. Among them, Paris is distinctive, renowned for its cultural character. A century ago, it was the European centre for literature, music, fine arts, dance and fashion. However, such a world-renowned capital hub has its dark side. Zhao Kunyu found that the Bodhisattva statue stolen from the auxiliary cave of Cave 16 now rests in the Cernucci Museum in Paris. However, the lions that were carved out alongside the statue are still nowhere to be found.
拉回去以后，把狮子全部修掉了。这个呢是可以说是一种二次破坏。
The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the British Museum in London, and the Louvre Museum in Paris are three of the world's most famous museums. Another statue taken from Auxiliary Cave 1 of Cave 16 in the Yungang Grottoes, a cross-legged bodhisattva, is displayed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Beside it is another bodhisattva statue from Cave 27 of the Yungang Grottoes.
这是27窟，在它的东壁上层呢，斧凿痕迹都可以今天看到，一个整尊像被盗凿。
The Musée Guimet in France, renowned for its collection of Oriental religious art, boasts the largest collection of Asian artworks in Europe. Among its exhibits is a statue from Cave 30 of the Yungang Grottoes. In Cave 30 of the Yungang Grottoes, signs of theft are evident throughout. On the lower layer of the eastern wall, a Buddha's head is missing. Above, where an attending bodhisattva once stood, there's a vacant space over 1 meter high. This space was once the home of the statue, now in the Musée Guimet.
这个佛像被盗凿以后，也许是出于为了偷盗时候、盗凿时候方便，它是切割成3部分，或者也是为了它便于盗运，因为它的整体很高大。在它的头部和它的脚部、腕部、脚腕处都有切割的地方，分割出来的地方。
According to statistics compiled by Zhao Kunyu, Japan has the highest number of missing Buddha statues from the Yungang Grottoes, with many originating from caves 7 and 8.
像这个魔种啊，本来是一个魔种。刚刚我们拿到这个图片的时候，根本不知道它是一个什么情况，位置在哪儿，不大清楚，就说很茫然。那么有了沙碗这个书呢，我们偶然呢在这个画面上头看到了一个形象。在这个地方呢，有一个，这是一个降魔成道的一个题材，是第8窟主室东壁，周边呢是魔众，中间呢是个坐佛。 四边呢都是满布魔军，他们来恐吓佛的成道，全部是逆法型，手持各种法器啊武器，来恐吓这个释迦。
A book titled The Art of the Six Dynasties was published in Japan, featuring images of many Yungang Grottoes statues now in the country. Such books often sadden Zhao Kunyu. Determining how many Yungang artifacts are dispersed worldwide is challenging, and sometimes even the museums themselves are unclear about their true origins. Caves 1 and 2 of the Yungang Grottoes, due to the remoteness of their location and the collapse of their front walls, have both suffered significant thefts. Virtually no statue inside these caves remains intact. The majority of thefts from the Yungang Grottoes occurred between 1910 and 1929. In 1929, the government reported a loss of 96 Buddha heads. The stolen statues are found primarily in Japan, France, the US, and Germany.
从当时中国的一个社会情况来看，中国石窟寺佛像被盗凿已经成为一个普遍现象。像龙门石窟、山西的天龙山石窟、河北响堂山石窟，大量的佛头基本上全部被盗凿，不堪目睹。
In 2010, the Yungang Research Institute released a set of 16 postcards depicting 16 exquisite statues and Buddha heads. However, none of these statues or heads remain in the Yungang Grottoes today.
被盗凿的造像啊，从这个石窟走下来以后啊，会感觉到非常的美。它在上头呢，我们有这么多的造像，你感觉不出来啊。当它落下来单拿出来，我们觉得哎呀，无限的美，美不胜言。
After 1949, the plundering of Yungang Grottoes relics finally ceased. However, natural factors still continued to cause damage. Cave collapses and the erosion of stone carvings have left the Yungang Grottoes vulnerable. Without significant restoration effort, this cultural treasure could be lost forever.
当时的云冈石窟的保存状况确实是比较让人担心的。这个我这文献资料里头，当时用的就4个字，叫“悬石累累”，就是到处都是这个风化悬空的这个岩石，然后也开裂的非常严重，而且经常有碎石掉落。
In the 1950s, China started to undertake comprehensive protective measures, primarily focusing on reinforcing the grottos and their statues. Zhang Junsai is a cultural relic restoration technician at the Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeological Research. He was once apprenticed under restoration experts at the Palace Museum in Beijing. Over the years, he has garnered extensive expertise in the restoration of relics. He played a key role in restoring the nose of the main Buddha in Cave 20.
人家是那个有那么厚、那么宽厚一个节，别开裂了，当时还没掉下来，没掉下来，可是看是很危险呀，要是掉下来，这鼻子就没了。 后来我来搞下去就打烂了。原来我是不想闹，最后呢，那你不闹你也得看一看，看一看就不行了。咱搞这个搞修复的，一看，总想法总把它闹上，最后就把它上冰桶一吸，把里头烂脏东西全都一去了以后再把胶抹上，就闹上去。粘上以后，第二天又糊的方。 把缝一糊，把外面一做，这就是这个情况。
In 1961, the Yungang Grottoes were listed as one of the first key cultural heritage sites under national-level protection by the State Council. That year, a pioneering restoration project was initiated. Restoration experts conducted chemical grouting and bonding tests on the pillars of Cave 1, as well as the Buddha niches and heads in Caves 10 and 11. They also applied cement to some of the stones that were in danger of falling. After 1964, they used chemical grouting, adhesive bonding, and anchor rod techniques to repair many more grottos. Today, the Yungang Grottoes area features a memorial hall dedicated to the late Premier Zhou Enlai for his pivotal role in protecting the grottos. In September 1973, the then French President Pompidou visited China and toured Yungang, accompanied by Premier Zhou Enlai. At that time, the grottos were under repair and not fully accessible. The Premier and the President visited caves 20, 7 and 5. Both were deeply impressed by the 1,500-year-old Northern Wei Dynasty grotto art, frequently inquiring about its history, artistic significance and restoration work.
总理看了当时的现状以后，对我们当时国家文物局的领导提出要求。当时这个国家文物局的局长说，我们做了一个规划，要用10年的时间把永冈石窟的这个稳定性要解决掉。总理说太长，10年太长，用3年的时间来解决它。
The result was a decisive 3-year project to protect the Yungang Grottoes, marking the most extensive rescue effort since 1949. Cave 20, the most famous grotto in Yungang, experienced a collapse during its initial construction. Before the 3-year project commenced, the rocks above the Buddha's head were unstable. Not only in Cave 20, but also in many other caves, there was a serious risk of collapse due to severe erosion.
我们今天看到的永冈石窟，实际上就是70年代保护的成果。洞窟坍塌的部分被安了上去，洞窟裂缝部分被粘接了起来，彻底解决了永冈石窟的稳定性问题。当然，包括一系列技术方法，锚杆、牵拉、环氧树脂粘接等等。
After the 3-year project, the stability problems at the Yungang Grottoes were fundamentally solved. Erosion became the next focus of the conservation efforts. In 1993, a comprehensive erosion control project was launched for the Yungang Grottoes. Since it coincided with the commencement of China's 8th 5-year plan, local officials called it the 8-5 Maintenance Project. Lu Jiwen has spent many years researching the causes of erosion in the grottos. He believes that there are multiple reasons, but water is the primary culprit.
你有雨水啊，窟顶上边要下雨啊，而它呢岩体呢有自然的裂隙，那个雨水就会顺着裂隙要进来，对吧？第二个呢，就是由于温度和湿度的关系，洞窟里边。 在夏季或者秋季产生凝结水，这是一种对它的危害。产生了凝结水，它也要疏解风化，加快了。
The ground outside the Yungang Grottoes used to be noticeably higher than inside, causing rainwater to flow inside. One task of the repair and protection efforts was to lower the exterior ground level. The ground in front of caves 1 to 4 and the ground in front of caves 7 to 20 were both lowered. More drainage ditches were constructed. During the ground lowering works, archaeologists conducted excavations, uncovering statues, door hinge support blocks, coins and other relics from the Northern Wei, Tang, Liao and Jin dynasties. They also discovered a dam in front of the Northern Wei grottos. This photo shows Cave 20 in the 1930s. And this is its current appearance. It's apparent that an additional flight of steps has appeared in front of the Buddha. The steps were revealed in the 1990s when conservationists lowered the ground in front of Cave 20. Situated on the edge of the lowest plateau, Datong gets just over 300 millimeters annual rainfall. However, even this limited amount of rain can be harmful to the grottos. Rainwater not only directly erodes the cliff faces, but also seeps into the caves through hill cracks and crevices, eroding the statuary. The soil layer above the rock strata on Wuzhou Hill, where Yungang is situated, is not thick. Rainwater tends to accumulate within this soil layer, leading to extended periods of erosion in the underlying caves. The preservation authorities of the Yungang Grottoes have laid waterproof geotextiles beneath the soil layer and elevated low-lying areas prone to water accumulation, as well as directing meteoric water to specially designed open drains. Together, these measures have significantly reduced rainwater leakage into the cave ceilings. Protective eaves were extensively constructed in the grottos during the Northern Wei dynasty. These eaves can prevent direct erosion of the caves by precipitation, ensuring a relatively stable environment inside the caves and alleviating water damage. However, the eaves were later destroyed, leaving only inset holes in the rock wall. In 1651, during the Qing dynasty, Tongyang Liang, the Governor-General of Xuanfu, Datong and Shanxi, renovated the eaves of Cave 5 and Cave 6. He introduced two 4-story wooden structures featuring red pillars and blue roof tiles, adding a magnificent splendor to the two grottos. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, the existing eaves were twice repaired and rebuilt. In recent years, traditional-style Buddhist temple eaves have been put up in front of what is known as the Wuhua Caves, encompassing caves 9 to 13.
比如说，这个木构件，这个柱子和地下遗址的关系，它们之间是如何隔离的？这个就是我们要考虑的具体问题。当然，它们本身的工程质量也是我们要考虑的。 再一个就是，比如说这个库檐建筑和石窟本体，它到底是个怎么样的连接关系？那么前后后大大小小的项目大概就是有100多项。
The Wuhua Caves acquired their name from the exceptionally splendid appearance given by their vibrant repainting during the Qing dynasty. Within these 5 caves, the statues showcase exquisite carvings and colorings, providing valuable material for the study of Northern Wei architecture, sculpture, music, dance, and history. Over time, the exposure of the front walls and columns led to rain damage, wind erosion, and sunlight. Consequently, cracks formed within the rock structures, and the weathered columns became fragile, increasing their risk of collapse.
这2个列柱是经过我们保护修复的，有的个别的地方你能看到我们封护和灌浆的痕迹，有的地方呢，我们是把它修旧如旧，你可能没有看得清楚。这一块呢，我们做过支护性的保护，就是什么呢？打铆杆，用打铆杆的方式呢，把这个顶部呢加固的严实。 就是从南往北打铆杆，这个9号窟和10号窟一共打了16根铆杆。你比方顶部我们看那个大的莲花，那个莲花当时掉了，然后又把它补上去，用打铆杆和粘接的办法把它又拖上去，这样呢，游客还能看得到我们这样的大莲花。
Among the caves of Yungang, perhaps the least conspicuous are the stones devoid of carved figures. However, even these stones, once they begin to weather, need a significant amount of time and effort of restoration. The workers meticulously clean the salts from the cracks in the stones, then employ chemical materials to fortify the weathered layers. Finally, the restored rocks are distressed to ensure they blend seamlessly with their environment.
每年的除了我们大同这个地方，上冻以后，这个气温因为气温低不能干了平时天天干。
Shanxi province, where Datong is located, has a long history and rich cultural traditions, with diverse folk beliefs. Its profound culture and numerous temples have nurtured many artisans dedicated to preserving and restoring the murals and sculptures within these sacred sites.
其实还是这个师傅带徒弟这个模式比较长久，因为咱们过去就是到80年代的时候，这种还有在农村里面，一个修个小庙啦，画点壁画啦，或者是农村那个老百姓家里头画的那种墙围的那种装饰画了，都是师傅带徒弟的模式传下来的。
These skills have been passed down through generations. These folk craftsmen may not possess advanced theoretical knowledge or have attended specialized schools, but the valuable experience gained through the master-apprentice method has played a significant role in the preservation of the Yungang Grottoes. The restoration technicians at the Yungang Grottoes learn from these folk craftsmen, combining their skills with modern scientific techniques. With the assistance of these craftsmen, the proportions of various components in adhesive repair materials are determined through repeated trials. Datong, the city which hosts the Yungang Grottoes, is famously known as the coal capital of China. The grottoes are nestled downstream from the Shili River, which has become a hub for coal mining activities. The mining industry is a prominent pillar in Datong's economy. However, coal mining operations produce coal dust, which absorbs sulfur dioxide and water from the air, creating an acidic environment on the surface of the caves. This acidic environment accelerates the weathering process. In the 1990s, rapid industrial and economic development resulted in a huge increase in traffic volume on National Highway 109. The Yungang section of the highway was just 300 meters away from the grottoes. On average, over 16,000 large coal trucks passed by every day, creating severe dust and exhaust pollution. The local annual average concentration of total suspended particles posed a real threat to the grottoes. This large statue in Cave 19, reaching a height of 16.8 meters, was not spared. It may be hard for people to imagine that even deep within the dome-shaped cave, the secondary dust stirred up by coal trucks once darkened the giant Buddha's kasaya to a dismal black. Cave 6 was dedicated to Empress Dowager Feng, grandmother of Emperor Wen of the Northern Wei dynasty. It's considered to be the most exquisite cave in the Yungang Grottoes. However, 20 years ago, its brilliance was similarly obscured by coal dust. This Buddha in Cave 18, renowned for its kasaya, adorned with numerous Buddha figures, is said to represent Emperor Ba Tao, who had initiated the Northern Wei's suppression of Buddhism. It's estimated that during the 1980s, at least 1,000 grams of coal dust settled each year on every square meter of this kasaya. To preserve the grottoes, the State Development Planning Commission and Shanxi provincial government decided to change the route of National Highway 109. In 1998, a dedicated coal transport line moved the coal trucks 1,500 meters away from the grottoes. The former highway was repurposed into a Yungang tourism route. The change marked the first instance of rerouting a national highway for the preservation of cultural heritage since 1949. The rerouting of the national highway significantly improved the environment around the Yungang Grottoes, especially the air quality, which essentially met the national secondary standard. However, the complete transformation of the Yungang Grottoes environment relied on the overall improvement of Datong's surroundings. Datong boasts abundant high-quality coal resources. The Jurassic coal being mined now is the best for power generation, known as industrial fine powder and refined grains of the world's thermal coal. To tackle this challenge, Datong embarked on a thorough revolution. It invested substantial funds and used financial incentives to encourage residents to abandon the traditional practice of using raw coal for cooking and heating in favor of adopting cleaner burning, lower emission briquettes. This effort resulted in a significant improvement in air quality. Additionally, in recent years, Datong has actively promoted clean energy sources, such as electricity, natural gas, and solar power, to replace coal, resulting in comprehensive improvements to its atmospheric environment. This ancient city was the first capital of the Northern Wei dynasty. Over 1,500 years ago, within these very walls, Emperor Shao Wen and his grandmother, Empress Dowager Feng, initiated a series of reforms despite strong opposition from their Xianbei officials. Their goal was to integrate diverse ethnic groups and transform the state into a Sinicized empire. Later, Emperor Shao Wen left Datong to further this plan by relocating his capital to Luoyang, closer to the heartland of Han culture. Nevertheless, the legacy of Datong and Yungang perseveres, embodying the passionate assimilation of external cultures by a nomadic tribe from the north and their bold efforts in self-reinvention. The people of Datong firmly believe that the Yungang Grottoes hold immense artistic and historical value, deserving being shared with the world. On December 14, 2001, the Yungang Grottoes received official recognition as a World Heritage Site, becoming the 28th site in China to be included on the World Heritage List. Today's Yungang Grottoes have undergone remarkable transformations over the past 4 decades. The scenic area has been expanded by at least tenfold, and the resplendent Yungang of history has re-emerged in all its glory. Lingyan Temple, also known as the Temple and Palaces on the Hill reflected in the river, was a renowned monastery during the Northern Wei dynasty. The esteemed geographer, Li Daoyuan, praised it in his Commentary on the Waterways classic. The appearance of the grottos is immensely majestic, a rarity in the world. They're surrounded by the hills and water, with temples enveloped in mist and adjacent to forests. In addition to the temple and palaces on the hill reflected in the river, the new Yungang Grottoes scenic area also features Lotus Avenue, Tanyao Square, and a museum. A fresh and astonishing scenic area has emerged, seamlessly blending the royal grotto temples, gardens, and ancient architectural clusters. He Liu, a member of the Yungang Research Institute, is touring the Yungang Grottoes today with his middle school classmate, Tao Min. While Tao Min grew up in Datong, she later went to university in another city where she subsequently lived and worked. During the National Day holiday, Tao Min takes time off to return to her hometown and asks He Liu to accompany her to tour around Yungang Grottoes. This native of Datong finds herself unable to recognize the grottos in their new appearance.
去外地上学，然后工作已经10多年了。然后小时候来过的之后，给他的印象特别不太好，所以他也一直没想着再过来。这次过来看了之后，感觉特别的骄傲和自豪。作为大同人，感觉很自豪，更是为云冈石窟感到骄傲。
The change that Tao Min saw is a direct result of the continuous preservation efforts dedicated over the years. These efforts are now bolstered by cutting-edge technological approaches. The monitoring system for the Yungang Grottoes encompasses traditional aspects such as weather and environmental conditions, along with microenvironment factors within the caves like temperature and humidity. Additionally, it monitors new elements like cracks, seepage, unstable rock formations, and weathering conditions. Dedicated monitoring is also in place for the front columns and the eaves of the caves. Through these comprehensive techniques, preservation personnel can identify even the slightest changes. Condensation threatens the caves and typically emerges when water vapor condenses on the rock surfaces due to temperature hitting the dew point in winter. The Yungang Research Institute and China University of Geosciences have devised a tool to measure rock surface condensation. This device aids in analyzing the formation process and quantification of cave condensation water. As a result, proactive measures like ventilation and dehumidification can be taken before the condensation reaches critical levels, preventing its accumulation on the rock walls. This is the Grottoes Digital Centre, the newest department to be established within the Yungang Research Institute. It boasts the youngest average age of staff members in the institute. Furthermore, utilising digital methods for the protection of cultural heritage and information preservation is a relatively young field in itself. The inception of the Digital Centre took place in 2013, with the primary aim of precisely documenting the condition of the caves and creating digital maps. The Yungang Grottoes are adorned with intricate high-relief sculptures. In the past, documenting details such as sculptural thickness, materials, and their interconnections with other parts of the caves, along with the identification of cracks and their depths, relied on less precise manual methods like hand drawing and grid-based mapping.
为了更加完整准确地记录石窟现在的一个状态，那么到了后来，在1986年，国家文物局与这个建设部综合勘察设计院合作，对云冈石窟进行了一次近景摄影测量的这种高精度的数字化采集，那个应该说是云冈数字化的一个开端。
By the 1990s, the technology of three-dimensional laser scanning and high-precision digital photography had matured, resulting in the digitization of the Yungang Grottoes.
那么我们现在采集的信息，最高的分辨率精度能达到0.03毫米，就是说我采集用激光的两个激光点之间的点间距0.03毫米。那么包括这种色彩，我要达到色彩的精度达到90%以上的。
The synergy between the digital information and its corresponding images, combined with micro-environmental monitoring and cave damage sample analysis, provides the fundamental data for cave preservation. In the past, the comprehension of cave weathering was limited to qualitative descriptions, offering only vague assessments of how quickly it was progressing. However, digital technology has significantly advanced this understanding, with years of measurement data yielding ever more precise insights into cave deterioration. In one example, the digital technology allowed the Yungang Research Institute to manage a 70% reduction in the weathering rate of the outer column of Cave 9, following the construction of the eaves.
这是一个很大的一个，就是很惊人的一个数字。那么这些数据就是对我们云冈以后大规模的修建这种保护性库园设施，为文物延年益寿、更好的保护文物、传承文物，可能起到一些数据上的支持。
A shipment of construction materials has been delivered to the Yungang Research Institute. Zhangzhou is currently working with them, aiming to develop a method for crafting an exact life-size replica of the Yungang Grottoes that can be assembled and disassembled. This would allow the grottos to travel overseas, offering the world with a glimpse of the rich and diverse Chinese culture. Since 2015, the Beijing University of Civil Engineering and Architecture has partnered with the Yungang Research Institute, employing digital technology to replicate the grottos. It's a collaboration that is inching Zhangzhou's dream closer to reality.
既然是世界遗产，世界瞩目，所以怎么样发挥北建大的多学科的特点和优势，来实现石窟的高精度、足尺的复制，是一项挑战。而这项工作呢，国际国内都没有先例。
Three-dimensional laser scanning technology offers the advantages of vast data storage and high fidelity in recording the forms of cave temples, statues and murals. It can generate cross-sectional profiles from various directions within the caves.
然后它这个点呢，实际上呢就是空间的坐标点。这个点呢是由 x、y、z 坐标，包括 RGB 色彩的颜色值。然后呢，这个3维点云数据我们采集了之后呢，我们要对它进行后处理。那么打开刚才那个3维模型的那个界面，您可以看到这个是一个实体模型，这个比刚才呢效果就要直观多了，震撼多了。它能够再现云冈石窟的这种面部特征，还有它这种结构特征。
By generating models from data, 3D printing technology can reproduce the caves with remarkable precision. In 2016, the complete Yungang Grottoes were digitized using techniques like 3D laser scanning. As an experiment, a miniature version of the attending Bodhisattva from the eastern side of Cave 18 was successfully 3D printed. In this manner, the grottos, exemplifying the finest Chinese cave art from the mid-5th century to the early 6th century, have been preserved by digital technology, permanently safeguarding them for history. Meanwhile, the real Yungang Grottoes at the foot of Wuzhou Hill continue to cast their spell over visitors. These grottos embody a fusion of Eastern and Western civilizations. They harmoniously blend elements from India, Central Asia, and China. This grotto art evolved from showcasing Indian or Central Asian characteristics to embracing a uniquely Chinese aesthetic. In this, the Yungang Grottoes mark a significant milestone in the Sinicization of Buddhist art. Their influence extended to the later Mogao caves and the Longmen Grottoes. The Yungang Grottoes, constructed initially as royal properties, exhibit profound political implications. They encapsulate the merging of different ethnic peoples and a confluence of civilizations of the Northern Wei dynasty, which ultimately paved the way for the most of illustrious dynasties, the Tang, more than a century later. Yungang is a crystallization of the interaction and integration of many cultures from along the Silk Road. Through life, passion and faith, it provides us with an unparalleled artistic realm which allows the past to illuminate our present.